Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. I was lying in bed last night, and while everybody talks about finding aliens and contacting them, it puts a lot of the onus on us. Now, we're still monkeys, barely a million years removed from the savannah. Our technology is primitive. It does fantastic things. But realistically, I think aliens, intelligent aliens, would probably be the ones that would have to contact us. We have on this show before discussed why I don't think aliens would have any reason to contact us. But for the sake of the argument, let's assume they're explorers and relatively benevolent. Because if they're coming to conquer, they would have done it already. So let's assume, they're altruistic and they're like the Vulcans in Star Trek. So, these altruistic aliens hear of us through a telescope, through maybe another alien species that's heard of us. Whatever the case may be, what is the first thing that anybody does? Anybody who has any sort of military experience knows the answer. Reconnaissance. You're going to gather what information you can, you're going to put it all together and then say, while these people are still relatively primitive, they make some interesting art. They make some interesting toys. We don't understand what all of it means, and I'd like to open a dialogue with them. Intelligence gathering. This is what we do with the uncontacted tribes. First thing we do is, fly some drones over them. Make sure we can observe them where they can't observe us. Things like that. Because even though they're armed with spears and we have, AK-47s, we still want to make sure that we maximize our odds for a good first contact. So this is something that is real world, practical knowledge and would be logical for any alien species to jump into as well. In their history, they would probably tell us, yeah, we went to Nelvana 9 and we found out that the people there weren't as intelligent as we thought and they tried to eat us. Okay, that's legit. You can't blame an alien species for wanting to protect their own just as much as we want to protect our own. Now, the second step, again, from human experience, we try to find the local tribes and see if they know anybody over there that could do an introduction. Again, this is smart because we got to learn their language. We got to figure out this guy's the leader and this guy pretends to be the leader. And this person over there, he's a farmer, but at the same token, he knows everybody. So those are all interesting points of contact depending on what you want to do. Unfortunately for aliens, we don't know anybody that can hook us up. We are a lonely little species, kind of in the butt end of nowhere, and that's not going to change anytime soon. So the next step is you start introducing them to the concept that there are other beings in the universe. Because again, you don't want to frighten them. They might have a different society. Remember, it's very difficult for us to translate language. We do have math as a language, but equations only get you so far. We still haven't taught ourselves how to speak whale. We haven't taught ourselves how to speak dolphin. We can't even speak chimpanzee to the chimpanzees. They can speak to us. So, these aliens would probably, and here is where I'm going to reverse my previous stance on UFOs, where I don't believe they're nuts and bolts aliens coming to visit us. But at the same token, I go for the general rule. I don't believe most of them are nuts and bolts aliens flying through the sky on some sort of cosmic joyride. And can you imagine the meeting where that takes place? Okay, Bubba and Skeeter over there are going to fly over the skies over this part of the planet and take pictures and stuff like that. Even if they send a robotic probe, which would explain some of the high gravity maneuvers that they do, it would be very weird for it to do the things it's doing. The Tic Tac that buzzed, I can't remember which aircraft carrier, and they got pictures of it. I'm still not sold on it, but it's more in what I expect to see from an alien probe. Completely robotic, so it can perform fantastic maneuvers, and that way it can get close to a military cruiser, which is something you would want to assess. Hey, this Nimitz it would have to be a Nimitz class. This Nimitz class is one of the most advanced ships that they have. Let's see what it can do. And they showed they could do anything they wanted, and we couldn't do a thing about it. Again, this is why I don't think aliens are particularly hostile. So you've established two forms of intelligence. Not only your signals intelligence based off what we shoot off into the universe, but you've established physical intelligence. You got your photos, your monitoring, whatever internet high-speed hookup that aliens might be using. And I'm sure they have something way better than what we have there. Or maybe not. People always assume technology progresses in a linear fashion. It doesn't. Aliens could be 400 years more advanced than us in poetry. Their computers might be relatively primitive. They might be an entirely different technology base. We use binary because 1 and 0 makes sense to us. But suppose their culture is they revere pyramids, which is not such a hard thing to imagine. We have had cultures on our own planet that do the same, and they would build a trinary computer, which is 0, 1, and 2, using those. And that would be what they would do because that's their mentality. It's different. We use binary because we think it's more efficient, but maybe they're doing calculations we've never thought of. But their computers are like Commodore 64 level. They're incredibly capable, they're just not as advanced as ours. You can do spectacular things with lower levels of technology. I mean, they went to the moon on basically calculators. And here we are in 2023 with all of our incredible computational abilities. We can calculate pi to the point that we've realized it is in fact a repeating number, just some sort of ridiculous 3,000, 30,000, whatever it is, long repetition. And we're doing that with today's technology. That's really a stage that we're going to have to understand, is maybe there can be some cultural interchange just because they have better drives and better monitoring systems doesn't mean we don't make a better omelet. That's for a later stage though. So you've established that there are intelligent, supposedly, creatures on this planet. You've established that they're interesting enough and they're non-threatening enough that they're worth talking to. What's the next thing you do? Well, you got to get interest up. I can show you archaeological marvels that would blow people's minds, and some people are going to walk through there and on their phone and not even look up at the exhibits. And that's just a museum. Imagine going into the pyramids themselves and all the secret rooms, and some people are still looking down at their phones. Although I wonder what the signal is like underneath the pyramids now. I wonder if I can find that somewhere. Anyways, so the aliens would have to present a case to say, oh, okay, there's this culture we have found. Here's what they do that's interesting. Maybe they'll show some Assyrian statues. Maybe they'll show some modern architecture. Whatever they decide to do, they are going to have to put it in front of a committee, some sort of agreement. Maybe they have a dictatorship. Whatever it is, they're going to have to get someone's attention and say, give us the money, give us the financing, give us the resources, whatever they trade in, to come to this planet and say hello. Okay. You see how complicated this is for a simple thing. And you know what? This is done on Earth constantly. So we do have a roadmap. We do have something that will show us how a successful contact works. Again, we're already established that as aliens, we're showing these humans, or whatever we call them, because, again, not sure if they can speak our language or not. Now, I go against Neil deGrasse Tyson here because I'm assuming they would be somewhat humanoid because it is a pretty good body shape. Fish have optimized the body shape for the water. How many four-legged creatures are there? Because that's just simply an efficient way to go across land. You got reptiles doing it, mammals doing it. This goes across kingdoms. It's just an efficient way to do things. So I don't expect them to look radically different. Perhaps they did evolve from lizards, in which case they'll be, scaly, maybe a bit slimy, or they could be reptilian but absolutely fastidious in their cleanliness. No judgment. I just think, yes, life comes in infinite choices, but you know what? A plant always tends to grow roughly the same way. A fish always tends to go roughly the same way. A crab always tends to grow roughly the same way. And we can continue this throughout the animal kingdom. So the laws of physics are what governs biology. So if we go to another planet, same physics apply. That's what we're going to find. Pretty similar things. There'll be unique variations. They might have come from an elephant, so they might have a trunk and, be eating off the end of it and feeding themselves in the mouth. Might be very useful to have that extra hand, as some of us have experienced in our lives. But enough about what they look like. We have enough trouble with what people on our own planet look like. I'm not going to worry about introducing aliens into the mix. But they're coming, because that's the premise of what we're talking about. So they've made the time to put the investment, the resources, their people. I'm not 100% sure whether they'd send people or they'd send a probe, because a robot probe, if it gets blown up, sucks to lose the money, but it's better than losing one of us. But still, I think they would be curious enough to send an actual being to say, I was the first one to shake hands with an Earthling. So here you get into the interesting part. And again, I'm modeling this after first contact situations here on Earth. Not the ones in the 16th and 17th century. No, I'm going to avoid that. But the ones that are taking place in modern times where we're trying to avoid a culture shock. So remember, we don't have a secondary tribe that can intermediate with us. We don't have knowledge of their language. We might have some knowledge of their customs. So they might know to hold their right hand up, palm open, or whatever they have for a right whatever, and understand that is a friendly greeting. Hello. Well, you actually have to go and perform that greeting to one of these, semi-washed, semi-clean, hairy bipeds that are running around the place. So I've got to go out and do the whole Klaatu Nikto Barada thing. And yeah, that's where the things come. So the best way to do this is have a slight barrier between you and them. Humans like to use a stream because they can figure it down to one path across where two leaders can meet, and this is as old as time, and they can shake hands, they can discuss, they can make a trade. Their warriors can be on both sides, and although I can't honestly say whoever was contacted by these people would have soldiers backing them up. It's a common trope in science fiction, but at the same token, if you're trying to show that you're not hostile, and if your technology is significantly advanced, you can walk out right in the middle of them and just laugh at these primitive little weapons. So again, let's get to the point. You are stepping out. The eyes of an entire planet are on you. I'm sure you're wearing your ceremonial best, which will probably look ridiculous to human eyes, but we think a lot of fashion's ridiculous. So if any aliens are listening to this, don't worry, not judging you. Other people will, I won't. But then comes the most interesting part where you start giving gifts. Now, giving gifts is one of the oldest traditions because once you give a gift, there's a bond created, either a debt where next time you see them, that person's going to give something to you. And while it's relatively meaningless, it can be an extreme example. You know, kings and emperors of stuff have sent whole treasuries across just so that way they would make a good impression on whoever it is, saying, I can afford to spare this much, and what do you got to show for it? Now, for us, when we contact these tribes, we give them shirts, and usually these are branded shirts, and there's, you know, just barely contacted tribes that they're running around with Coca-Cola t-shirts on them, and it's a somewhat amusing spectacle for me about how quickly people want to integrate into the majority. Keep that phrase in mind, how quickly people want to integrate into the majority. So they come, they give us some trinkets. They're probably not sharing their super advanced technology, but maybe they've invented pizza. I think pizza would be a pretty universal thing where you have some sort of a bread. Yeast is pretty good at establishing itself in places, and you have toppings on it. And as Graham Elliott said, the trick is getting the bread right. You can put any topping you like, but maybe you don't want to move to food because of different biology, different tastes, stuff like that. But I'm sure you have that t-shirt. You might have a timepiece, something that you know the person will recognize. This is valuable and incredible. In return, that person will reciprocate. Whoever gets these alien trinkets is going to have to figure out what they can give the aliens back to show their own non-hostility and good intentions. Wow, I am so glad I don't have to make that decision. Even if you get warning that they're coming in 2 weeks, you're going to have a trophy or something like that for them. And then after that, what do you get for them? Do they even have trophies? It's so unpredictable after that. And then the whole process of cultural interchange begins. Remember what I said about most people want to join the majority? Yeah, we're going to find out probably because I imagine their linguists will sit down with our linguists, and within a couple of years we'll be able to translate their language into all, was it 170 countries in this world, 190, all their different languages, or at least their primary ones. And yeah, once we begin talking, then they're going to tell us, oh yeah, we know the Kleborpians, and they're a few light years this way, and we'll hook you up. Maybe they are interested in trinkets. See, this is why I love Babylon 5. They had first contact with, Londo's people. I can't remember their name, but they admitted they had already peaked as a civilization, and they were more interested in trinkets. So they were looking for arts and sculptures and, the quirky little things, the homemade cottage industries, because they didn't have anything like it. So again, maybe they're far advanced as we are in terms of propulsion, but they don't have a Muskoka chair. And it looks fantastic. And they're like, geez, this thing will be comfortable to sit out back with, and whatever their version of fishing is, to do that with. So that would be how an alien organization, because they might be a united front, they might not be. We'll never know. That would be how they would go about making first contact. Aside from like Independence Day or movies like that where they just start blowing crap up. And I really don't think that's likely, because if they were going to do it, they would have tried it before we developed nukes. Like, unless they've just developed advanced transportation in the past 15, 20 years. And then we look like an extraordinarily unappealing target. Yeah, we can't fight on their terms, but boy, we got a lot of nukes. So I don't believe a hostile alien would bother with us. They might be like the Volguns from Hitchhiker's High from the Galaxy and destroy our planet to make way for a hyperspace lane. But even they made a first contact, which was basically a letter saying, by the way, we already told you this was happening. You know, get out. Oh, you can't do that? Not our problem. We warned you. The idea of how an alien would make contact with us is important because if you noticed, the the radio contact, the wow signal, the Jodie Foster movie, I can't remember what it was, is pretty unlikely from our side. We can't scan the entire heavens. We can't we can't make everything come to us. So it's up to the aliens really if they want to. Now unfortunately what this means, it again shows that we're probably in a pretty underpopulated galaxy. And aside from the local group, we're pretty much in a void. There's not much out there. There's another couple local groups out there, but once you get past 2 million light years away, that's a long trip, and that's to the closest galaxy, Andromeda, which is actually coming at us. Maybe they'll have more aliens when we get there. But like I said, this is how we have to look at the ways aliens would try to contact us. Probably not just by radio. They might be flashing lasers. They might have a communications technology they wouldn't even begin to explain to us. Because, again, how many of you people have gotten a telegraph or a telegram? I am just old enough that I remember, was it my grandparents or one of my uncles? And telegrams still existed. Telegraph, because they took it in, they printed it off. I forget. This is when I was like in the 70s and 80s that I'm talking about here. So I forget a lot of it. I was young because I remember when it was saying, respond immediately, stop. And I was like, why do they say stop all the time? Well, because there's no code for period. So we have to put stop to show the end of a sentence. Okay. See, lost little things like this. We couldn't imagine not having a period in 2023. A little bit of it that's left. So maybe if we start thinking harder on how an alien might try to contact us, we might get better ideas on how to detect them and contact them as well. Because right now we're doing it all from a human perspective. How do we detect this? But think about the aliens' perspective. How would they go about doing it? And while, again, Professor Neil deGrasse Tyson, I agree with him on a lot of things. Sometimes I got to step out on my own, and even though I can't match his level of education in astronomy and his accomplishments, I can match him in imagination. With that, we wish to thank you for joining us on the Silverlight Show today. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please click like, share, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment down below if you have any comments on the subject. I would be most interested in hearing them. Click the bell icon down and to the right just so that you can be informed every time we publish a new episode. And we hope you have a fantastic day.